Hi everybody, it's comics, it's Girls Talk Comics. Except it's just me, Erin, in my untitled project that's essentially just me reading a previews book and figuring out what I'd want to spend money on. Yeah, I do this a lot. Figured I might as well record it rather than typing it out. Okay, so first things first. Normally I'm not a toys person, but I checked it out this time and I found a couple things that really catch my eye. There's the Marvel Animated Statues series, which are all Scotty Young art, but statues, alright? And just so you know, prices range from like $40 to $125, so keep that in mind, collectors. Mondo is also releasing these awesome Mecha models. Come with like 30 points of articulation. You can exchange the weapons in the hands. But they're Spider-Man. They're really cool. They're also $160. So, you know, I probably will pass, but to each their own. I've started a little bit of the model kit collecting. Definitely the Pokemon ones. So when I saw that there's a sleeping pose Eevee coming out, precious. They're also super easy to put together because you're just popping them out of their little... oh, I don't know what they're called. Grids, I guess? Yeah, you just pop them out of the grids and then pop the pieces together and apply stickers. Believe it or not, I think the stickers are the hardest part. I also really, really love the Peanuts comics. I think the character designs are super cute. I think the humor is enjoyable. I loved the movies growing up as a kid. Really precious, really enjoyable. So when I saw this Peanuts Ultra Detail Series 12 coming out, I kind of want it. I kind of want some of them. They're $24 a pop though, so we'll see. I actually looked at some Marvel comics this week. It's been a long time since I've opened up a Marvel's preview, and I wanted to know what was coming out in the world. One of the first ones that caught my eye is the Amazing Fantasy 5-part mini-series that's going to be dropping in July. I think Amazing Fantasy is where Spider-Man first appeared. It has a long history of introducing new characters and concepts. Originally, the comic was sci-fi, but this reiteration is definitely going to be fantasy-based. I mean, the cover has Captain America riding an armored griffin wielding a battle axe and loincloth to rescue a maiden from an orc. Okay, we know covers don't always relate to the story, but Marvel's advertising is really pushing how out of time and place our heroes will be in this Amazing Fantasy reboot. A new Moon Knight series is also dropping. Moon Knight came to being in 1975, and this series is a perfect way to prepare for the Moon Knight show that Oscar Isaac is diligently training for. Mark Spector, Moon Knight, is a man given a second chance at life, serving as the Egyptian moon god Khonshu's avatar on Earth. With his superpowers and mission from his god, he's charged with protecting the people of the night. Moon Knight's a renegade, a defender. He put his own god in prison. I mean, what's not to like about this character? Star Wars High Republic was like the hot Star Wars comic series coming out. #1 sold out like everywhere, I want to say. I read the first issue, I got my hands on it, and I really loved the art. This series is set in the golden age of the Jedi, and it's giving us new characters, new challenges, new betrayals, new worlds, and new ships. I'm excited for the trade because I didn't get #2, and I'm gonna pick it up to read it in the trade format instead. Okay, I got one of the big two out of the way. Am I a real comics fan? So we're gonna start on our indies. Image is one of my favorite publishers, so I really had to kind of parse this one down to just a few. Emilia Clarke is getting into the comic industry with M.O.M, Mother of Madness. 1, the cover for this is bomb as fuck. 2, Emilia Clarke. 3, the main character is a scientist with superpowers who is also a single mom who is fighting against human trafficking. It doesn't take much to win me over, but that description really hit all of my check marks. It's got comedy and chaos, and those are the things we definitely need in the world today. Firepower Volume 3 will be also hitting shelves in July. I've been enjoying the martial artists who can make fireballs and how they and their families have to defend themselves against other fighters / monks. I'm mostly pointing volume 3 out so other people can also support the series. So I hadn't heard of SCUD, the Disposable Assassin, before. I heard about it for the first time about a week ago when a friend of mine said that he wanted to get SCUD as a tattoo. Like there's a specific splash that he wants to get tattooed on him. So when I was looking through the previews and I saw SCUD, the Disposable Assassin, a new printing coming out in June, I was like, freaking serendipity, synchronicity. It earned a spot on my list. Dark Horse definitely has some series coming out. Tales from Harrow County Fair Folk is Cullen Bunn's continuation of his Harrow County series. I believe it picks up after the original series ends, so you gotta be like me and catch up. Chivalry, a hardcover adaptation of Neil Gaiman's short story, is going to be dropping in September. Chivalry was originally published as prose in Smokes and Mirrors and read by LeVar Burton on LeVar Burton Reads, his podcast. I think it was Mr. Burton's soothing reading voice that introduced me to this heartwarming tale about an elderly woman who accidentally purchases the Holy Grail and is beset upon by questing knights who might have met their match against her sentimentality. You can fight a dragon, but lady has nostalgia. Colleen Doran is also a master of adapting Neil's work into art, and I know this is going to be a beautiful book. Yoshitaka Amano is the artist of the Final Fantasy game series. In Elegant Spirits, Amano gives us an adaptation of the tale of Genji, which was written by Lady Murasaki over 1,000 years ago. He also gives us his presentation of English and Celtic fantasies, including Merlin, the Seelie Court, and my favorite Shakespearean prankster, Puck. I have no doubt that this is going to be a beautiful book. IDW, of course, made the list this time around with Ballad for Sophi, a graphic novel that is about a reclusive pianist and a young journalist who come together to tell a story of rivalry, regret, and redemption. There's a lot of praise already set up for Milo and Kavya, with people calling this ambitious, dynamic, and a graphic sonata of an experience. Wynonna Earp All In caught my eye. I love the show, and knowing that this trade paperback is going to collect all the comics that have been published since the show premiered, really, it hooked me. Did anybody else watch this? It was so good. If you haven't heard of Wynonna Earp, it's about Wyatt Earp's descendants and their struggle with all of the vengeful demons he left in his wake. Yeah, you heard me. Vengeful demons. Turns out he had a magical gun that would send demons back to hell, so maybe he did a little demon hunting on the side. Anyway, turns out it also cursed his family to forever be responsible for hunting them or being ruthlessly murdered by them. I don't know how the show ends. Boom Studios is always a solid. They have a 5-part miniseries called Mamo coming out in July. It's about Orla O'Reilly, and who's the youngest in a family of hedge witches who now has to bear the responsibility of her deceased grandmother, Mamo. Mamo was responsible for keeping the peace between fairies and humans. Orla doesn't want that, and now she and a local Joe Manilow get stuck with the responsibility of putting everything back to balance, I guess. If you like witches, you should enjoy this. They also have a 6-part miniseries called Dark Blood dropping. It's about Avery Aldridge, a decorated World War II veteran with a wife and daughter. He's just a young black man trying to make it in 1955 Alabama. He's far from ordinary, though, and has strange powers that make him maybe one of the most powerful entities in the world. Potential problem for a country that doesn't want him to have any. LaToya Morgan is a screenwriter from AMC's The Walking Dead and Into the Badlands, so you know it's going to be a good story. The Last Witch will also be dropping as a collected softcover. I have been reading the single issues of the series, and our brave, young, witchy heroine really tries her best to learn magic to keep herself, her family, and her world safe. She faces some of the greatest dangers in her world, from power-hungry witches to her own weaknesses and doubts. It's a story about growing into one's powers and skills, and is the first installment of a YA fantasy trilogy. Now let's break down some truly indie publishers and some great books that I saw. Abrams Comic Carts is releasing a graphic novel adaptation of Octavia E. Butler's Parable of the Sower. It's dropping July 7th. Ahoy Comics is dropping Black's Myth. It's about an ordinary werewolf PI trying to make it in LA. It drops July 7th. The author, Eric, he wrote some really great stuff like Atlantis Isn't Built for Tourists and No Angel. Both books that I really love, so I know I'm going to be enjoying Black's Myth as well. Albatross Funny Books, they're dropping Did You Hear What Eddie Gein Done? This powerhouse of a creative team, Eric Powell and Harold Schechter, brings us an in-depth exploration of the most haunting serial killers in American history. The Impending Blindness of Billy Scott is going to be printed in a hardcover oversized edition. It already had one printing, which I missed, so I'm hoping to hop in on this one. Billy is an artist debuting right before she becomes completely blind. It's a tragic story that's also a metaphor about post-austerity Britain. This is a new edition of the book, and it's also coming out in July. Behemoth Comics is dropping the series Cinnamon. It's life and adventure from the perspective of an ordinary house cat who fights off dark forces and biker gangs to get some catnip. It looks adventure-packed and over the top, and I'm really excited to read a cat's adventure in their own home. Drawn and Quarterly will be publishing Beautiful Darkness. It's about homeless fairies who are trying to fit into an increasingly hostile world as they have to cope with dangers from outside and within. This is a paperback version of the book that was originally released in 2014, and it will now come with additional material. First Second Books is continuing their trend of adapting podcasts into graphic novels, this time with Bubble. It's based on the Serial podcast and takes place in a city called Fairhaven and involves monster hunters and good coffee. If you'd rather read than listen, kind of like I do, book will be hitting shelves in July with a $20 price tag. Humanoids is bringing us the book River of Ink. To quote, it's a thought-provoking book about the very origins of the art of illustration. It's going to give you complex answers to simple questions, and no one should miss this one. Magnetic is coming with a new title, Monolith. I believe Monolith was kickstarted, but it's a psychological thriller about a mother trying to rescue her 2-year-old son from the safest car ever in a slowly heating up desert. It's a cinematic feast. Silver Sprocket is coming out with Magician A. Natsuko Ishitsuyo tackles the topics of sex, female sexuality, love, and ambition in this collection of stories that also blends multiple art styles. It's slice of life stories and even includes a story of starting an online magic business. Titan is bringing us Azimuth. Wilfred Lupano and Jean-Baptiste Andre brought this quirky fantasy to life. It's full of fun, flawed characters who are really just trying to cope with the magnetic North Pole disappearing. The art looks astounding. Bolt is bringing us another horror book from Cullen Bunn. It's called The Last Book You'll Ever Read. Olivia Cade is a best-selling author and prophet who is blamed for the violence and unrest across the world. Her life rests in the hands of her security guard, who should be able to protect her from fans and enemies alike as long as he doesn't read her book. Viz is coming out with a new manga, Mashal, Magic and Muscles, features Mash, a self-trained fitness god who lived in the forest, and his time in a competitive magic school. The twist? He doesn't know how to use magic. He might be the only one in his world who doesn't use magic. So this is a journey of him finding alternative ways of beating his competition. There are definitely some books I'm more excited to see than others. There's this series called Sweet Paprika. It's something that I've caught art and glimpses of on the Twitterverse and is described as Bridget Jones' Diary meets Sex and the City with a pinch of The Devil Wears Prada. It's a broken-hearted, wary woman named Paprika and her budding friendship, relationship, benefits ship with a suave delivery boy named Dill. It's Paprika and Dill. Like a food thing. Get it? The trade paperback for Bliss is also coming to shelves. Bliss is a drug that is wiping away memories in Feral City. This book's got Hitman, it's got Forgiveness, Family, and I have waited a long time for this collected volume to come out. The covers have been really, really enticing, but I didn't notice it until number 4 hit the shelves. This volume will collect numbers 1 through 8, and I'm excited to finally read it. Iyanu, Child of Wonder Volume 1. Iyanu is a teenage orphan with no recollection of her past and suddenly discovers that she has abilities that rival the ancient deities told in the folklore of her people. It is these abilities that are the key to bringing back an age of wonders as Iyanu begins her journey to save a world on the brink of destruction. The corrupt, cursed wildlife and strange divine beasts are determined to destroy humanity unless Iyanu can stop them. This is a story that combines African fantasy and superheroes, something I should definitely read more of. Stephen McCraney's Spaceboy Omnibus Volume 1 is coming from Dark Horse. I started reading Spaceboy on Webtoon. It's a love story across time and space where our heroine also has synesthesia. For her, everyone has a flavor. She was living a happy life on a space colony, but her and her family had to take a 30-year journey to Earth, during which she stayed in a cryotube. As a stranger to Earth, she finds a variety of teens in her new home who need her kindness more than she could have ever expected. She also meets a very lonely boy who doesn't have a flavor. Boom Studios is coming back with Mouse Guard! David Peterson returns to his beautifully created Mouse Guard world with 3 new stories: The Owlhen Caregiver, Piper the Listener, and The Wild Wolf. David's stories reflect compassion, bravery, and the harsh realities of the world. I've enjoyed every story I've read, and having new ones is something to look forward to. Maverick is bringing us a story, Needle and Thread. Needle and Thread is about 2 high school classmates who exist on the opposite spectrums of the social ladder. One is a cheerleader and the other isn't. How could they ever be friends? Turns out, cosplay can bring the world together, and that's how these two connect. 7 Seas Entertainment has this really quirky manga called Die Dark. Zaha Sanko's body has great and terrible powers. His bones can grant wishes to anyone who possess them. Unfortunately for him, he's still alive and possessing his bones. And he's also a teenager who really just wants to eat spaghetti sandwiches. He's really too good for the universe, yet everyone in the universe really wants to kill him. Fortunately for him and his skeletal friend, Avakian, they are really great at keeping Zaha alive. I mean, really, really great. Like, scary great. This book is funny, and it's full of body horror, and it's just an eclectic mix of gritty art, comedic writing, and a tender, earnest love of spaghetti. That's all from me today, and thank you for joining me. I'll post the information about these books in the description below, so you can have codes and price points and release dates. And I'm giving you all of that because I did the research this time. I'm so glad you can join us today. I'm still open to titles. Right now we're going to work with Erin Talks Comics. See how that goes. But if you enjoyed this and want to hear more, hit that like and subscribe. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye! Goodbye.